right, so hi, my name is Shipley. I'm the owner and founder of Sweat Bar Fitness. It's a premium group-based fitness facility here in Pittsburgh. But before opening Sweat Bar Fitness, I actually worked in technology. I was a management technology consultant at PricewaterhouseCoopers. When I left technology consulting, I actually took a few positions here in Pittsburgh. I was a senior manager, I was a director, ran some IT teams, worked a lot in technology, but I also worked a lot with the business. So it was a lot of that middle ground of how do we utilize technology to drive the business. I left my career, launched Sweat Bar in January of 2020. And if you know time well, you know that was 3 months before a global shutdown. So leaving an IT career where you're making lots of money to go open up a gym is kind of ill-advised. A lot of people said you shouldn't do that. I thought, it's going to be fun. 3 months later, we were shut down from the global pandemic. So it was a struggle. It was a real eye-opening experience for me. Really found out a lot about myself, challenged me in a lot of different ways. I thought opening a business would challenge me. I didn't know opening a business like this during a global pandemic. I never could have realized how much this was going to challenge me in my life. We persevered through it, so we made it through the shutdown some way, somehow. Gyms across the nation were shutting down. Just startup gyms, the likelihood was not high. Some way, somehow, we figured out how to persevere through that. We actually were voted the #1 gym in Pittsburgh first year. We've gone on to receive over 500 five-star written reviews, testimonials. We're really making a dramatic impact in a lot of people's lives in a positive way. So it's been awesome, but it's funny because when I first launched and I left my career, a lot of the people that were still in the technology, a lot of my friends, Bill Fortwangler spoke yesterday, he's a good friend of mine. They asked me the question, do you regret that decision of leaving your high-paying career and going and being bankrupt for the next 5 years of your life? And I always say that by the time I'm 40, I'm 39 now, so I'm getting close, but I said by the time I'm 40, I could be bankrupt or I could be a millionaire, and either way, I'll be happy. Because that experience taught me things about myself that I would have never known if I had not gone through it, right? So that'll become a little bit more relevant as we get into the presentation today. I just wanted to give you guys kind of a quick backdrop. So I want to start out by engaging you guys and just asking a couple questions. See if anyone really wants to speak, but I'm going to do kind of a hand thing. So I want to start out by most valuable player, right? I want you guys to think about the most valuable player in your organization. Who is the person that comes to mind when you think of, like, there's no way we could lose that person. If we lost that person, we'd be in a lot of trouble. And I know sometimes it's a trick question, like the customer is the most valuable player. Like, it's not the customer, right? I want you guys to think about who do you work with on a day-to-day basis that you're like, things would fall apart if it wasn't for that person, right? And what are the behavioral characteristics of that person? What are some of the things that come to mind? Anyone have any, like, characteristics of the most valuable player in the organization? And I'm not thinking about, like, CEO, right? I'm thinking about the people that are in the day-to-day grind, the operations, show up every day in a way that no one else shows up. What are the characteristics of them? Anyone? Help me out. Throw me a button. What was that? Excellence. Awesome. I like that. Trust. There's a book called The Speed of Trust. Having trust among your teams is huge. Sorry, go ahead. Detail-oriented. Awesome. Yeah, I like that. Reliable. People can count on them, right? Yep. Anything else? Awesome. Those are all great behavioral characteristics, right? I put a couple up there, like, are they likable? Are they someone that people actually enjoy working with, right? Are they lifelong learners? Are they open-minded? Do they listen to other perspectives? All things to be thinking about. We're going to come back to this in a minute, but I want to ask you guys a question before moving on. Did anyone think of themselves as the most valuable player in the organization? Not too many ego people in here. Like, yes. I didn't think the whole room was going to raise your hand. I'll just ask you the question, why didn't you think of yourself as the most valuable player in the organization? Anyone? Okay, we'll come back to this. This is not an ego thing. I'm not trying to get you guys to leave here today and be like, I want to be the most valuable place. But I think that mindset of having the behavioral characteristics where you know that if you left at any point in time, things would fall apart around you because you're that pivotal to everything that you're doing. You're on all the high-stake initiatives, and you're the person that everyone's counting on to help keep moving the ball forward, right? So it's just important to think about right now. We'll come back to it in a little bit. All right, growth mindset. So does everyone in here believe that talent and skills can be developed? You're not just born with them. You can actually learn how to develop talent, right? I only ask that because if you don't think that, you're going to have a hard time at the rest of my presentation. You just might just want to walk out now. All right. I'm a very growth-minded person. I think that people have the ability. He got up. I was like, uh-oh. He's like, I'm done. I'm a lifelong learner. I love learning. When I work with executives, I always find it fascinating to see the executives that have just kind of shut down on their own learning, right? They don't have coaches. They don't read books. They don't listen to podcasts. They're just like in this thing where they think that they've peaked. No one has peaked. Everyone needs a coach, right? The best leaders in the world have the best coaches in the world. We all need to continue learning, and I think that skills can absolutely be developed. Okay, let's move on to something else. Proud. All right, so I'm a big, firm believer that sometimes we just get kind of stagnant in life, and we have to figure out how to challenge ourselves. There's a great quote that life happens at the end of your comfort zone, right? Neil Donald Walsh said it. And I always ask myself, like, what does that really mean? Like, does that mean I have to, like, fly to Maui and leave my job and, like, start this whole new life? No. You just got to challenge yourself continuously, because when you challenge yourself, you learn about yourself, you figure out how to improve, and then you grow. You grow as a person, right? So I'll tell you a quick story about that. I do an accountability program, and it's just me working with someone one-on-one. It's basically to get them out of the rut of life. And I had a mom that brought a kid to me, teenager, like 16, 17 years old. He was very uninspired, you know, on the Xbox all day. I don't know, is Xbox still a thing? I don't even know. You guys, you know? Whatever. He was on some gaming all day long, right? And she just felt like he wasn't very motivated. So she brought him to me. She said, can you work with him? I said, my program's 3 weeks. I'm going to totally shift his mindset. She's like, okay. Yeah, right. But so we talk. I sit him down. And he thinks because I'm a gym guy that I'm going to train him physically. And I said, listen, you're not here to be, I'm not going to train you. We're not working out. If you want to get in shape, just join the gym. That's what that's there for. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make you believe in things that you never thought possible. Believe that you can do things you never thought possible, right? I'm going to shift your mindset. So I asked him a question. I said, just tell me something you're really proud of doing in the last 6 months. And he looked at me like this. Like, what? And it's a really hard question to answer on the spot, especially in a one-on-one setting like that. So I didn't hold him to it. There might have been something that he actually was proud of, but he didn't have an answer for it. I said, okay, well, that's the goal of the next three weeks. What I want to show you is that you're way more capable of what you ever imagined being capable of, right? So what's the furthest you have ever ran? He said 2 miles. I said, cool. In the next 3 weeks, I want you to go outside. I want you to run 10 miles straight and don't stop, right? Just keep going. I don't care if it takes you 2 hours, 3 hours, just do it. I knew physically that he could do it. He could have walked out the door that day and did it. What I knew and he didn't know was it was a mental game, right? When he's thinking, I've only ran 2 miles in my life, this guy wants me to run 10, 5 times my potential, my capacity, right? He's thinking that's crazy to go out and do that and be 2 hours, 3 hours on a trail or something just by yourself. That mental, like, he's like, what? Like, that's insane. It wasn't insane. I got a text 3 weeks later said I just did 10 miles. He went from leaving that day telling me there's no way he was going to be able to do it to within 3 weeks running 10 miles, right? So he, without even having a training plan, without even having a coach, could do 5 times more than he ever imagined possible, right? That was the goal to show him that. So if it were a marathon, I would have gave him a training plan. He wasn't ready to run a marathon, right? He could, he would just need a training plan. But 10 miles, he didn't need a training plan. He just needed to get his head around being able to do 10 miles. So I got his head around it, and he did it. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Okay, regret. Who in here regrets some piece of their life? This is a tough one. People are always like, he's going to call me and ask me what? I'm not going to ask you guys. But you guys, we all have regret, right? I have a lot of regret. I'll probably get into some of it. But the reason I bring up regret is because I think it's a very powerful tool. If you use it the right way, it can be a very good motivator for driving you forward, right? Because you don't want to regret your life. And we're going to get into that in a little bit. But I just want you guys to think about some of the things that you regret. Things that you did, things that you didn't do, decisions that you made, all of those things, okay? We'll talk about those a little bit more. And then the limitless possibilities of technology. If you read the bio, it probably is in there. But when I worked in technology as a technologist, we were always talking about the limitless capabilities with technology. You can do anything with technology, right? And technologists are very driven to work with the business to make them understand the capabilities that exists with technology, right? That's how passionate I am with you, with people. I love lighting people up in a way and showing them the limitless potential that they have within themselves, right? If we can figure out how to tap into it and we can figure out how to harness it, you're going to do things that you never dreamt possible, right? We'll talk a little bit about that. Okay, so here, let me test myself here. Boom, there we go. Okay, what I want to share, 3 things. This is what I want you guys to take away from today. My Survive to Thrive framework. I want to show you the framework that I use and teach to become the most valuable person in your organization. And again, this is not like an ego thing where you go back and you're like, yes, I learned how to become the most valuable. It's just so that you have all of the things in your mind that you're thinking about, that the work you're doing makes you indispensable. Because when you get to that point in your life, you pick and choose where you want to work, when you want to work, and who you want to work with, and what you want to work on, right? That's where you ultimately want to be. Next, we're going to go into my midlife crisis. When I was 33, I had a midlife crisis. I thought it was a midlife crisis. Turns out, after studying Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I was actually right below the top tier, which is self-actualization, the realization of one's true potential in life, right? So we'll talk a little bit about that. But the reason I want to talk about that is because I want to make sure that you guys leave here thinking about how do you really live a rewarding and fulfilling life, right? And it has a lot to do with things you're doing outside of work. So we'll talk about that. And then my human innovation framework. So a little bit of what I just talked about, how to make yourself proud, build confidence, and achieve your impossible. So whatever it is you want to do, if you want to lose 30 pounds, if you want to write the book, if you want to build the business, if you want to get the promotion, if you want to become the executive, whatever it is you want to do, there's a blueprint for doing it. There's a plan, right? Someone's already done it. Somebody already wrote a book. There's a way to do it. So we want to tap into that, right? I want to show you guys the framework for achieving anything you want to achieve in life, okay? We'll get into that. Those are like really bold promises for how much time do I have left? I have like 20 minutes to get through this. Okay. You're going to have all those things when we're done here in 20 minutes. All right. Let's go. All right. So you're probably saying, like, who is this guy I think he is to be able to do all those things? And honestly, like, my mess becomes my message, right? Like, my testimony is because I've been through a lot of these things, and I struggled for a long time in a lot of different areas, and I figured out how to overcome. And so that's what I really teach today. I want you guys to know that everything I'm talking about is coming from experience. It's not from me reading books or taking certification exams or any of that. It's literally my life experience I'm sharing with you because I want to share and help you guys tap into the same resources, right? So the survival years, that was me starting my career, the guy way in the back. In college, so I went to college in 2001. That was my first year of college. I got my job, my first job in the dormitory. I was like the clerk, right? I got hired out of 15 people. I'm like, yes. Turns out you had to do a job requirement I had no idea how to do. Anyone can guess what it is? Emailing. I had never sent an email. This is 2001. I had not sent one email. I didn't even know what it was. Web chat, like that. What was the thing called before Facebook where you could just talk with friends? I don't remember what it was called. Whatever. I didn't know how to do that. I'd never done that before, right? I was in there to be, I had an IT or information systems degree. I didn't even really know what that was. I didn't know what business degrees were. I honestly didn't. I thought people that were in the business program were entrepreneurs that wanted to open their own business. I didn't know what marketing and advertising, I didn't know the difference between marketing and advertising. I'm still not sure I know the difference between marketing and advertising, right? I was very far back on the spectrum, least likely. So fast forward 4 or 5 years, and I'm interviewing the top management technology consulting company in the world. And at that interview, I still realized that I was very far behind the curve, right? I was out in Philadelphia. One of the guys that was interviewing with me was out of Villanova, one of the top schools, the best companies in the world are recruiting from them. And he's talking about like interviewing with all the top management consulting companies and wants to see which one's going to give him the best benefits package in 401k. I didn't even know what a 401k was. I didn't know that day what a suit, a regular suit versus a suit that actually fits looks like. I had a regular suit on. His suit actually fit him really well, right? I was just so far behind. And so when I think back on that to the 2001, I didn't even know how to send an email. 2005, I'm interviewing at the top management technology consulting company in the world. And just a couple years later, PricewaterhouseCoopers and Deloitte & Touche interviewed me for 30 minutes, and both offered me an interview or a job on the spot to go after a multi-million-dollar engagement. So what I like to show is, how did I go from being someone that was super unskilled, not worthy to be in management consulting at all, to then being a highly recruited prospect from PwC and Deloitte to go chase down multi-million-dollar projects. And then after I left technology consulting, I was promoted 4 or 5 times in 2 years, was very quickly being put in front of all the executives of the big corporations to talk about the biggest decisions that they had to make when it came to technology, right? So I want to talk a little bit about that. The out of shape and unfulfilled. After I had all of those things at 33 years old, I had everything that I sought to get, right? My dad wanted me to go to college, so I went to college. I learned how to send an email. I did all the things I was supposed to do. I had a really high-paying job. I had a huge house, 5-bedroom house, big in-ground pool, 8 acres of land. I had a lot of friends. Everything was there, but I felt so unfulfilled. I couldn't figure out why. I had everything society told me I was supposed to have, and I still felt really unfulfilled. So I started with fitness. I was out of shape. I didn't like the way that I looked. I didn't like the way that I felt. I didn't have any energy. I said, I need to do something. I need to change my life. So I started with fitness. Really quickly, I learned that I wasn't really out of shape physically. I was out of shape mentally. I was a person that if it wasn't work, I was making an excuse. Anything that was hard that wasn't work, I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to show up. I didn't want to show up for the people that needed me, my friends, my family, the work outside of work. All of those things, I just made excuses for why I wasn't going to do them. And I didn't want to be that person anymore. So I started with running because I hate running so bad. And what I learned very quickly was that I actually hated the fact that I wanted to quit so bad. I'd get 1 or 2 miles into running and I'd just want to quit. I'd quit and walk and go home. And I said, I don't want to be that person anymore. I don't want to be the person that just quits after a mile or 2 miles because it got a little bit hard. So I eventually went from running 2 miles and struggling at like 33 years old to I just did a 50-mile ultra run last year in August. And that journey, right? Like if you would have told me back then that I was going to run a half marathon or a marathon, I would have said you were crazy. 1, I didn't want to do it ever. And 2, I would just said that's impossible, right? So I want to talk about, as we go through the presentation, the formula for really getting from 2 miles to 50. And if I think about like the workouts that I started doing back then, it was a struggle to get through a 1-hour workout. Like I hated it. I hated working out. So to be a person that struggled to work out for 1 hour a day, a couple of days a week, to being someone that trained every single day for 3, 4, 5 hours. There was a time I was on my bike in my apartment for 5.5 hours training for an Ironman because I didn't have much time to train. Just finished the Ironman in July of 2022. Does anyone know what an Ironman is, the distances? Sometimes it helps to just tell people the distances because they're like, I don't really know what that is. It's stupid. But it's a 2.4-mile swim, a 112-mile bike, a 26.2-mile run, consecutive, right? So it took me 15.5 hours because I didn't have much time to train. I got really sick. I'm not going to make excuses, but it was a really long day out on the course for me. But I was able to do that. I was able to go from someone that hated working out for an hour to being someone that did a full-length Ironman, right? So I want to talk a little bit about how that became real for me. And then regret becoming my superpower. Like I said, regret became a driving force in my life. When I got to 33, what I was thinking about was quitting all the sports in high school. I quit everything. I quit every team I was on. I quit baseball, I quit soccer, I quit wrestling. And then after college, I got a great job. I was in management consulting. I was growing. I was learning. I got in a lot of trouble. Drinking became a huge problem. I got arrested multiple times. I spent multiple days in jail, multiple jails. I was on house arrest for 3 months while I was working for PricewaterhouseCoopers. I took an unpaid leave of absence. They said, okay, go ahead. They don't ask any questions if it's not paid. So I took 3 months sitting around on house arrest, right? And I regretted these things. I regretted the shame that I put my family through, the shame I put myself through. And I didn't want to feel that anymore. So I started thinking about, on my deathbed, 30 years from now, God willing, or more, what are the things that I'm doing right now in my life that I'm going to regret later, right? Or not doing in my life. And that became a powerful driver for me. So I want to talk a little bit about that. All right, so this is just kind of like the section we're on, right? We're going to go through these pretty quick. My survive to thrive framework. So I've never seen this matrix. You guys might have seen something similar. I developed this as a way of talking to my teams, just because it really helped me explain where I was at some point in time and where I thought they were at. But it's pretty easy, right? This side, talent and skills versus expandability, which is the desire to learn, grow, and expand, right? So the bottom quadrant, like these are the people you do not want on your team, ever, right? They're not talented, they're not skilled, and they have no desire to learn anything, right? Like, you don't want them. The top left can be a problem too, right? These are the super talented people that are very good technicians, we'll say, as an example. But they kind of feel like they know it all. And they're not people that are sometimes easy to work with, right? So they're highly skilled, but they have no desire to really learn, grow, and expand other capacities. And then you have this far out to the right. This is where I spent a lot of my career. And I'll just call it like the thirsty quadrant, right? These are the people that just want so bad to learn from others. They want to keep expanding their skill set. They want to keep growing, right? And when you put the highly skilled in combination with the people that always want to keep growing, you get what I call the top performers. These are the people that already have a ton of skills and talents, but they also continuously want to learn, grow, and expand and contribute back to others, right? So I'll tell you a quick story about two of the quadrants, the skilled know-it-all, right? We'll start there. There was a guy that when I left consulting, I was working in corporate. I worked in a position that I had to work I literally was like an internal consultant. I had to work amongst all of the technology teams and all the different business unit and leaders to try to bring everyone together onto the same page to figure out how to move the ball forward, right? That was a lot of my role. And one of the guys that I work with on the technology side was what everyone would have said is the most talented technical person we have in the organization. And he was literally required in almost every single meeting, right? And if he was sitting here today and I asked the question, who's the most valuable person in your organization, are you them, he would have put up his hand. And I don't think he would have been shy about it. He thought that he was the most valuable person in the organization. In my mind, he wasn't even above that chart. Right? So he was far left, and he wasn't even above the line. Because, yes, he was very good technically, but what made me really sad was if this guy would just come to the table, drop the ego, stop the conflict, be willing to work with other teams to figure out how to move the ball forward and not just worry about himself and his voice being heard and all of these other things, right? We could do so much more because he was right. He was very skilled technically, but it was all of the other things that mattered. He was an anchor to so many things. Every meeting he was in, he dragged it down. And he made it so hard. He made me look like a superstar because I had to be the one that figured out how to bring him to the table, right? Those people are super difficult in an organization because while you need them in one capacity, they just weigh everyone down in other capacities, right? The opposite, the thirsty. I had a guy, he came out of the Army, and I was running a project management team at the time, and he came to me and he said, look, like I'm going to study, I'm going to get my project management certification, but I have like 25 years leading infantry, and I just really think there's a lot of relatable skills to project management. I'll do whatever it takes, like give me one chance, please. I'll come in here and I'll do whatever you want. And a couple months later, he was one of my top performers. And what I knew on day one was, I don't care if you know how to create a critical path, right? I can teach you how to create a critical path. What I can't teach you is how to go into a room full of 15 arguing stakeholders, right? And get them all to see each other's point of view and come to a conclusion on the best way to move the ball forward. You can't teach that. That is talent and skill beyond belief, right? So the technical piece of project management, the ability to create a critical path or log risk or identify issues, that stuff never mattered to me when I was running a project management team. I could teach anyone how to do that. What I couldn't teach was everyone you work with, I want them to like you. I want them to enjoy actually working with you, right? I want you to be the person that walks in the room and everyone says, thank goodness they're here, because now we might get something done. I want you to be the person that's like, thank goodness that they're running the meeting, because we know everyone in the meeting should actually be here. And we actually have a purpose for the meeting. We're actually going to be able to accomplish something in this meeting, right? There's a major difference between the people that on paper have the technical. I actually never even required the PMI. I think a PMI is a great foundation of knowledge, but it's not what I look for in a project manager. It's not what I look for in fitness trainers. I always have people say, I'm not certified to train in fitness. I said, well, we'll see about that. See how well you work with people, right? If you have 20 years of lifting experience, you're certified. For me, right? I don't need you to go read a book and take a test. So I think that the way we think about our talents and skills is what I really want to bring to attention here, right? The top performing people in the world have a number of characteristics, right? When you thought about the most valuable people in your organization, I can probably guarantee, I can assume that they had things in common. One, they were probably people that never made excuses, right? They take accountability and they take ownership. They're probably people that are very disciplined, right? They're not the ones that are running around all day with their hair on fire. They have time management skills, right? They're the people that on time is 15 minutes late, right? They show up in a way that makes everyone else show up better. How do they do that? Because they light a fire in people. They inspire people. They motivate people. And you can be at any level in the organization to do this. When I took a job out of consulting and I came into corporate, I'll always remember I was sitting with a vice president one time, and I was just having a meeting with him, and he said, Chad, I just got to be honest with you. You know the difference between you and almost every single other person on this floor that works here? Every morning when I walk by you, you say hi to me. He's like, none of my team says hi to me. And it's not that they didn't like him. They just weren't very personable, or they were like scared of him or whatever. He's like, you actually make me feel good every day when I see you and you say hi. That opens up doors. That makes it so much easier for me to walk into a room and ask him if he's willing to come into a meeting because we need some help on something, right? That ability of being liked. I know it sounds so simple and stupid, and people will say, that's not fair, I'm more technically skilled. I'm here to tell you, I don't work in this world anymore, so I can say this. I don't know if a lot of people want to say this. If people don't like you, you will be held back. I've seen it time and time again. I've seen the most technically skilled people not be promoted because they're too hard to work with, right? If people don't enjoy working with you, you'll never get things done. The only reason that I was successful, the reason that I flew up the corporate ladder and was recruited by these, so I talked about PwC and Deloitte coming to be a strategic recruit. I was working on a multi-million-dollar project at a client. My company, my consulting company went bankrupt. Guess what the client said to Pricewaterhouse and Deloitte, who was trying to buy the work? They said, go find Chad. We don't know where he's at, but go find him because we like him. I wasn't skilled at all technically. I just worked with them in a way that they liked me being there. They liked me being the one that asked them the questions and working with the technology teams to get the answers, right? So there's a lot of skills that I think we need to think about when we really look at talent, right? And that desire to continue learning and growing. Okay, so I'm moving here. The second piece of this is a shift in the mindset. You are the product and everyone is the customer, right? I used to think about this in consulting for myself personally, because in consulting, you are literally the product that's being sold. So if you don't show up everywhere the right way, you're not going to show up much longer. So it just became ingrained in me that everyone I work with is a customer. Even my own consulting teams, I had to make sure they wanted me to come back onto their projects. And I think when we start to shift the mindset like this, we start showing up better for everyone, right? If you go into a meeting and everyone in the meeting, regardless of who they are, like if they're on your team, if they're your boss, if they're someone under you, if you have a servant mindset that, listen, I'm here to sell my services. I'm a walking resume. This is my personal brand, and it's everything, your character, your integrity, your trust, right? Your likability factors, you're detail-oriented. All of those things, you're a walking resume. When you show up somewhere, you're serving. You're not there to fight about conflict and egos. You're there to say, listen, this is how we go forward, right? That person is indispensable in an organization. That person is extremely valuable. Hopefully the person you guys thought about when you thought about the most valuable player has a lot of those characteristics, right? All right, midlife crisis. This is where it gets fun. So this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? At 33 years old, I think I can say that I got all the way up to the esteem and shut down, all right? So at the top is self-actualization, the desire to become all that one can actually be, right? If you look at over here, the process of becoming everything that you are truly capable of. that started to haunt. Because I got to the point where I thought I had everything that I set out to have. And I'm like, wait a minute. I thought I was having a midlife crisis, right? So I started asking the question, like, what am I capable of? How should we be thinking about that? And my personal opinion is this isn't just work, right? Like, I think of things in terms of absolute optimization. How do you become the best version of yourself in every area of life that matters to you, right? I always say that if you're a millionaire, but you're too busy to play with your kids, you're not winning, right? You're not going to live a fulfilling life. You're going to be on a deathbed in 30 years and you're going to regret something, right? So how do we balance across the things that mean the most to us? But at the same time, how do we become what we're truly capable of becoming? I think my dad was meant to be a really good dad. He was the best dad in the world, right? He was very skilled and talented at becoming a dad, and I think that he maximized the potential of becoming a father. He did things that no other fathers do. It's hard to even describe. So I think there's different areas of life. I think that there are some people that know that they're born to be a writer, and until they actually write the book or write what they were supposed to write, they're not going to feel that self-actualization, right? So it could be in a lot of different areas of life, but there is that thing that you need to go do or you'll never find true fulfillment, right? So for me, the way that I started to really think about it was the power of regret. Like I said, I regretted a lot of things in high school, and I didn't want to feel that anymore. I didn't want to feel like, oh, I wish I would have done this, or I wish I would have tried that, right? That's the way I started thinking about everything. I actually read a book called The 5 Regrets of the Dying. Anyone read that book by any chance? It's heartbreaking. It's very sad. It's a person that she does care for elderly or for terminally ill, and she develops really meaningful conversations with them. And, days or weeks before they end up passing, they tell her a lot. And she put that all into a book and kind of broke it down into the top 5 things that people regret when they're dying. And it's so sad. It's sad to think about someone that got to that stage in their life and started asking the questions of like, wait a minute, why did I work for 30 years and never take the vacation or never write the book, right? So for me, when I think about what am I truly capable of doing, I ask the question, what am I going to regret not doing later? And then I go focus all of my time in those areas. So this is my list. Could I have built a business? I didn't want to ask that question in 30 years, right? I wanted to go figure out if I could take everything that I learned from management consulting and put myself to the test. And like I said at the beginning of the presentation, I'm so glad I did that because I learned so much about myself. I didn't expect to have a global shutdown 3 months later and go hundreds of thousands of dollars into debt, which I'll talk about in a minute. But I'm glad that it happened because now I learned something about myself. Tony Robbins always asks these questions like, who are you? What are you made out of? What do you want? Why do you want it? What's getting in the way? When you start asking those questions about yourself, you start to really figure out things about yourself you never knew, right? I didn't want to ask myself, could I have ran a 50 mile? Could I have been an Ironman? Even more importantly, I don't want to know if I could have been a better dad. I don't want to ever ask that question. I need to make sure that I know the answer to that every single day, right? Better friend, better partner. Could I have wrote the book? Could I have inspired others? Could I have been a speaker? Could I have been a performance coach, right? I just gave a lot of examples on my personal side. And again, none of this is me bragging about a 50 mile ultra. I'll be honest, like, if I'm considered an ultra athlete, I'm the worst in Pennsylvania, without a doubt, right? I just figured out how to make it to the end, right? Shauna was with me, 8 aid stations. She was there taking care of me. 13 hours later, I finally made it. It's not bragging. It's just something I never thought I was capable of doing, and I figured out how to do it, right? So I put this quote here, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. I was on that path, right? And again, this is not me saying you should all quit your jobs and go build a business. Not at all. I think for every single person, it's going to be different. But when you start thinking about these things, you get woken up to life a little bit, right? I didn't want to be on this high trajectory. I was making a lot of money, and I got paid, I think the year before I left, bonuses that I would have never imagined getting. I had everything that I thought I wanted. And if I would have kept going, I was probably set up to retire in 10 years from when I left my job, right? And then go do something else with my life. But I didn't want the money. I want money, but I want money living the life that I really want to be living, right? Doing the things that I really want to be doing. And I didn't have that at that point in time, and the trajectory I was on wasn't giving me that, right? So I started asking questions like, what am I going to regret in 30 years? Last, human innovation framework. Okay, so you say, all right, that's great. What am I capable of? I started thinking about some things. I want to go tackle my impossible. How do I do it? I came up with a very simple formula, and this works for everything. Everything that you want to do in life, this will work. The problem is it's hard. It's very hard. Every goal requires a plan. So whatever your goal is, whether you want to do an Ironman, you want to get out of your $100,000 of debt, right? Multiple $100,000 of debt, which is me. I have a goal right now to get out, and I have a plan, right? Whatever it is, there's a plan, there's a template, there's a blueprint, there's a framework. Someone has already done it and published it, especially in today's world. The gatekeepers have been removed, right? Everything's been democratized. There's access to everything. Podcasts, books, whatever. Everything's out there, right? There's a way to do it, without a doubt. The Ironman, in March of this year, I said, I'm going to run an Ironman. Let's do it. Got to get a coach, because I'm not doing it on my own, right? Call up the coach. He says, okay, I got a plan. I said, am I going to be able to finish? He said, you got to follow my plan every day, not make excuses. There's no negotiables, right? And in July, you'll cross the finish line. If you do everything I tell you to do for the next 3 months or whatever, you'll finish the race. Might take you a long time, but you're going to finish. He had a plan, and all I had to do was follow the plan, right? So every goal requires a plan. Every plan requires a new set of habits. So I think it's good for us to have daily habits, right? It's good to be someone that shows up on time. That's just a habit. It's good to be someone that maybe spends some time in self-care or love every day, 10, 15 minutes, a little meditation, a little time by yourself, reflecting. It's good to think about the next day. These are all good habits to have no matter what you do or what you're working on. But if you have a very specific goal, you're probably going to have a new set of habits that are required, right? For the Ironman, for me, my new habit was that I was going to have to train for 3 or 4 hours a day, every day for 4 months on end, right? It was a non-negotiable. You don't have the option. People that drink coffee don't wake up in the morning and say, I wonder if I should make coffee today, right? You get up and you make the coffee. When you have a goal, and that goal is something you deeply want, there are habits that you put into place, and you wake up every day and you do them, and that's it. When people come to me and tell me that they want to lose weight, I said, you have a non-negotiable 15-minute mindset. You have to walk for 15 minutes a day minimum. And if you want to do more, that's fine, but don't give yourself an out. Don't let yourself say, I'm not doing it today. Every single day you have to walk for at least 15 minutes. The nice thing is that in their minds, if they're not signing up for an hour every day is really hard, right? That's hard to stick to, especially if you're just starting out. But if you say, I'll do 15 minutes, that 15 minutes quickly turns into 20, 30. They're listening to a book. They're out there. They're doing it, right? It's just getting them into that every day. You have something you have to do, so get up and do it, right? Non-negotiable habits. And then I like to say this because it's really important. Hard things become less hard as you do hard things, right? As you expand your capacity. You guys know this in your careers, right? As you grow and you start taking on more and more and more responsibility, it was probably stuff that at one point in time you saw someone else doing and you're like, oh my gosh, their job seems so crazy, it seems so hard, I don't know how they do it. As you continue doing hard things, they become less and less hard, right? It's just a matter of mental expansion, which is what's cool about continuously challenging yourself. Because then when you do go into 3 months of opening a business and the whole world shuts down, you at least know that you have some perseverance in you. You have some mental fortitude, right? I had been training for 3 or 4 years and doing really hard things up until that point. So I knew that I was capable of something. I knew that I could push myself a little bit harder and not just quit and walk away like I would have if I were 33 years old. The 33-year-old version of me would have never made it through our global shutdown. I wouldn't have done it. I would have walked away from that business easily, right? Last part here is really important. The truth is you'll never achieve the impossible until the pain of not having it outweighs the pain to get it. That's just a really hard reality, and it's with anything, right? Until it becomes so hard to stay the way that you are, you'll never change. There's always pain to get to wherever you want to be, right? If it's writing the book, you got to sit down every day and you got to write the pages, right? And until it becomes so hard for you to not write that book, so painful that you're not doing it, that pain actually outweighs the pain of sitting down every day and setting aside an hour and writing, you're never going to achieve that goal, right? It's just the harsh reality. For me, with the Ironman, the pain of not doing an Ironman became more painful to me than the training required to do it every single day, right? That's actually a Tony Robbins thing. He teaches that in a lot of his like power groups, and it's a very important realization to come to, because if you're not doing the thing you say you want, you have to ask yourself if you really want it. Because if you really wanted it, you'd figure out how. I have people every single day in the gym tell me I don't have time to work out, and I say, okay, then you don't really want it. You don't want that to be a goal, right? So that's that. I put this up here because I think it really speaks to just the simplistic form of having really what you want in life. And it all comes down to discipline. It's from Jocko Willink. Anyone know Jocko? Okay, a couple people know Jocko. Jocko's awesome. So I don't know Jocko. He's famous. But he was the commanding officer of a Navy SEAL platoon team that fought in Ramadi, Iraq. And it was one of the bloodiest battles in Iraq. He's now a leadership consultant. But he wrote this in the book, Tribe of Mentors. And I use it all the time because I think it's so important. Discipline equals freedom. Everyone wants freedom. We want to be physically free and mentally free. We want to be financially free. We want more free time. But where does that freedom come from? How do we get it? The answer is the opposite of freedom. The answer is discipline. If you want more free time, follow a more disciplined time management system. If you want to be financially free, implement long-term financial discipline. Do you want to be physically free to move how you want, to be free from health issues caused by poor lifestyle choices? You have to have the discipline to eat healthy food and consistently work out. We all want freedom. Discipline is the only way to get it. And that's just the reality, right? It's an awesome quote from Jocko. So when I talk about all those things at the beginning of like how I, couldn't send an email and I never even knew what business was, to going up the corporate ladder, and then on the physical side, not being able to run a couple miles to doing a 50-mile ultra, it all comes down to these simple things, right? What I really wanted in my life at that point in time were these things, figuring out how to get a plan, putting them into place. For me, the most important thing was actually discipline. That was the hardest piece for me to put into my life, because I was a very weak-minded person for a really long time. And now, one of the things I'm more proud of, if you ask me, like what I'm proud of doing the last 6 months, it's changing that mindset. There's nothing, I don't walk away from anything now, right? I'm not scared of anything. I'll take it on, and I'll keep pushing the challenges, or I'll keep pushing the boundaries by continuously challenging myself. All right, so connect with me. So you guys are all technologists. Thought you'd think this was cool. Probably is not going to work. Watch, we'll see. So if you text Hike2 to that number, you should get an automatic response, which is just like a link to my digital business card. It'll take you to my link tree. The cool thing from there is that you just can see some of the things that I have. If you enjoyed any of this presentation, I have a podcast series every day I upload. It's 10 minutes. It talks about my journey. And it's not just about like, here's how you win in life. It's literally me in the trenches, right? It's me climbing this big mountain, whether that mountain's another ultra event that I'm training for, or the business, or where we're at in the business. It's me in the trenches. And it's telling you things that are working really well, telling you things that are not working, things that I failed on. There's a whole episode on my 3 months of house arrest, and then going back into corporate and working at a big client and how horrible that was. So there's a lot of really cool episodes. There's only 10 minutes a day. If you text the number, you'll automatically get a link. It'll take you to the link tree. And I have a Friday Fire newsletter. So the whole point of that newsletter is every Friday morning, you wake up, you get something in your inbox. They're meaningful quotes. There's insightful content, 5-minute videos that I found to be very powerful that have helped me along the way. Once you subscribe to it, you actually get an email sent to you right away with one of the most powerful videos I've ever seen. I watched it almost every day as I was making the transition out of my job into launching my own business, right? You'll get that. A lot of my book recommendations, excerpts from amazing books. I have like this cat, she laughs at me. I have this catalog of like, she doesn't laugh, she likes it, but I have this catalog of like every book I've ever read, and like the excerpts that I found on all the different pages and the quotes and what's helped me in different areas. So that was collected over a lot of years, and now I share it every Friday in the newsletter. I'd love to connect with you guys on LinkedIn and Instagram. I actually already talked to Jay. He told me some things, and I'm interested to hear a little bit more about him. So please connect with me there. The accountability program, if anyone does have anything that you're really working on or chasing outside of this, my accountability program is pretty easy. It's one-on-one. I just work with you 3 weeks. We figure out how to put a plan in place and get you to start doing things you never thought possible. And then that text messaging, I have a 5 days motivational mindset. So for the next 5 days, you'll get a really awesome piece of content from me. I think it's awesome. You're probably like, stop, right? First message is going to be stop. I always hate when those come through. I take them so personal. I text message like hundreds of people. I'll get one person to stop, and I'm like, I can't, what? Like, they didn't like that? So I'm just kidding. If you don't like any of the content, just write stop. But for 5 days, I'll send you some really cool stuff. I found this to be a fun and engaging way for me to interact with my members. So when we do challenges, like we just had a warrior challenge we did for 30 days. Hardest thing I've ever done. It was harder than the Ironman training. Sean and I did it every day for 30 days. It was the worst challenge ever. It was really hard. I designed it. It should have been like not that hard. I screwed myself. But anyway, we sent out messages every single day to all the people in the challenge. So that's one part that everyone liked about it, but the actual what you had to do was just horrible. Anyway, that's it. That's my presentation. So thank you guys so much for taking the time. I appreciate it.